I think that we can feel ourselves safer when we see European Union member states, NATO member states, started to understand that Russia is really a threat.
My first question would be obviously about the ReArm program. In March, Ursula von der Leyen announced that there's going to be billions of euros for the European defense industry. Half a year after, how do you see this program moving forward?
It's moving in a very effective way, sometimes even unexpectedly effective way. For example, last week we announced the first results of so-called SAFE program and SAFE regulation, which is about attractive 150 billion European loans. And all that amount was subscribed by 19 countries, including 13 countries which announced that they will use SAFE loans also to support Ukraine. Now we are going into next stage. Till end of November, member states need to send us very clear investment plans, how they will use those money. And then those plans will be verified. And we hope that somewhere in January, or at least first quarter of next year, money will start to flow into the government. So that is moving. Then 16 countries ask for so-called national escape clause, which allows them to spend additional 1.5% of GDP for defense, and that will be not included into calculation of deficit, which for some countries is really very important. So things are moving. Also on other sides, like simplification of regulation, which was also creating a lot of problems for defense industry to expand. So that is also going ahead. Now, new ideas we are developing, and they were announced by Commission President. And some of those ideas we expect to develop together with Ukraine to bring your knowledge into for the benefit of the whole Europe. For example, building so-called drone wall, where your expertise and your real life knowledge would be very crucial for us, for the whole to build that drone wall in order to defend the whole frontline countries from what we have seen, for example, recently in Poland. So there are a lot of steps which we are doing and which we are moving ahead, and where really I see a lot of added value from our cooperation with Ukraine.
Concerning the SAFE program, Poland will receive almost a third of the funds, 44 billion euros. Do you think that the recent attack on Poland changed their calculus at what they're planning on doing with these funds?
I cannot tell. That is what the Polish government perhaps will say. But definitely Poland is and the money were allocated according to what member states asked. So we asked member states to notify us about minimum request and maximum request. Maximum request, if to sum up, it was substantially more than 150 billion. So everybody got more or less what was their minimum request. And member states, of course, calculated for what projects they are planning to spend those money. And one of the projects again was we received earlier in summer the letter from Baltic states and Poland with their request to assist them in development of so-called Eastern Shield, which would have two major components. One is what we can call classical ground anti-mobility measures and instruments, what Ukraine again was doing everywhere, with those Dragon Ts and things like that. But second was, from the very beginning, it was really this what we call drone wall, or wall of drones. And so that is in the plans. Now we see really that we need to speed those implementation, especially of that drone wall, as part of Eastern Shield, and that is what we shall push forward.
Hey, before we continue, please consider becoming a member of the Kyiv Independent. Membership with the Kyiv Independent allows us to do journalism like this, recording videos, print, and covering the war in Ukraine from Kyiv. Thank you for your support.
Were you surprised that Hungary also asked to be part of this program and will receive 16 billion, even though Hungary is one of the countries that downplays the severity of the situation and calls for really fast peace settlement in the war?
Well, all of us were for peace. The question is that Hungary maybe always was presenting in some way different approach to peace. That let's not support Ukraine and then peace will come. Which means surrender of Ukraine. So that is really unacceptable. But exactly the same. I said from the very beginning when I saw that Hungary is taking money. So I was asking myself some kind of rhetoric question. So if you are developing your defense capabilities, so you need to know against whom you are ready to defend yourself. And despite all the rhetoric and all the friendship, which Orban is trying to show to Putin, it looks like that they understand that the danger which aggressive Putin policy is bringing to the whole Europe demands from us very clear steps to develop our own defense capabilities.
Back in 2022, a lot of countries, when the full-scale war started, they also started buying more weapons. Poland especially, they procured 1,000 tanks and so on. Do you think that currently the calculus of the war changed so much that it's not wise to invest specifically in tanks and ground vehicles, and that the main push should be in electronic warfare, anti-drone stuff, and so on?
Well, that's discussion still going on, I would say. And well, first of all, what I said from the very beginning that as European Union, from the beginning of our mandate, when I was nominated as Commissioner for Defense, I saw very clearly that I need to say several things. And one thing was to say very clearly that EU is not competing with NATO and will not compete. And NATO is developing defense plans. NATO is developing and announcing so-called capability targets, defense capability targets, what each member state needs to build up in terms of defense capabilities, in terms of tanks, artillery, and so on and so on. And we are coming with, first of all, with our capability that we can raise money. NATO cannot raise. NATO can ask member states to spend 2% or 3%, but that's all. We can raise, in some way, in centralized way, as we did with safe loans. And second, we can implement industrial policy, which can support, industry in order really to provide member states all the possibilities to raise their capabilities, to build their capabilities, which are defined by NATO. So now NATO, during last summit, announced, well, that is, more or less secret, but with the member states was agreement on what is needed to be developed. Based on that, member states now, are coming with their own plans, what they really need to develop. As I understand, really, here was not specific, very strong emphasis on new modern warfare among those NATO capability targets. Definitely, that discussion will continue, and of course we need, additional artillery, additional, heavy weapons, classical weapons, but also it's obviously clear that we need to look into Ukrainian experience. We need to look how we need to change our war doctrine. For time being, those discussions are not, going in a very precise way. Very important will be the roadmap which Council asked us to present in October, roadmap of development on defense readiness, which Commission is now preparing. And of course, we shall put a lot of emphasis on this, new warfare doctrine. We can see, for example, recently, United Kingdom announced their strategic review of their warfare doctrine, and they put that famous numbers, that 20, 40, 40. That in the future, they are planning that 20% of targets will be hit by classical weapons like tanks or artillery, 40% will be destroyed by light, kamikaze drones, and 40% by heavy drones and missiles. So 40 and 40 sounds very similar to what Ukrainians are announcing, that 80% of targets Ukrainian army is hitting by drones. But that is not repeated by other European member states. Still, this change of doctrine needs to go forward.
Well, yes, and unfortunately with Poland, they're learning it the hard way when Russia attacked them with drones. You said that the European Union is not competing with NATO for obvious reasons, but we see recently that the US is not a really reliable partner, at least publicly. Do you think Europe is actually ready for war? Hopefully it never starts, but can it protect itself right now? And if no, when do you see this target being met?
Well, we have the program which very, with a title which speaks
2030.
itself. Yeah, Defense Readiness 2030. So if to listen to what NATO, leadership is saying, that the new capability targets, which now we agreed, are 30% bigger than the previous ones from 2021. But the previous ones were not implemented by 30% also. So simple arithmetic is saying that in terms of our capabilities, now we are at the level of 52% of what we need to have according to the new capability targets. So we have quite a job to do. Another challenge is that at the same time when we see possibility of Russian aggression, Americans, because of also quite rational reasons that they need to mitigate Chinese rising military power, they are starting to shift their resources, their military resources from Europe to Indo-Pacific. So we need to be ready also to fill those gaps, especially in so-called strategic enablers, which means space for defense services and things like that. So that's what we see as our strategic task.
To be prepared for any potential conflict, do you think that European soldiers or instructors have to come to Ukraine to learn what's happening, or do you see Ukrainian companies and Ukrainian instructors move to Europe? What's the calculus here?
Well, I'm saying very simply. Now what we are doing, we are taking care about material side of our defense readiness. In terms of how to produce weapons, how to increase production, how to finance, and so on. And this is about guns, tanks, drones even, and so on. But this is material side. Especially when we are looking into possibilities that Americans will start to withdraw, we need to take care also about institutional defense readiness, which means that we need to see how in the future we shall organize ourselves on the European continent, and also how we can integrate those defense capabilities which now are still not part of European Union. Like, for example, Ukraine, or let's say Great Britain, or even Norway. But especially with Ukraine, I'm saying always, again, very simple thing, which is maybe more important for frontier countries. If really it so happen that we shall come to what is called Day X and Putin will start aggression against us, so we need to understand that Putin will come with battle-tested army, much stronger than it was back in 2022, with ability to use millions of drones. And on democratic side of European continent, we have only Ukrainian army which has the same battle-tested capabilities, and that would be big mistake on our side, not to find the best way how we can integrate Ukrainian capabilities, Ukrainian defense forces and Ukrainian defense industry in a most rapid way into our some kind of new defense architecture. That is why we are starting to talk, and we shall move forward with some kind of new approach which is called European Defense Union.
Since you're from the Baltic states, do you think there in Lithuania and Estonia and other countries right now, those countries should feel safer or actually less safe in terms of what's currently happening with European readiness, with attacks in Poland, and with American support or non-support?
Well, in some, it's definitely perhaps there are mixed feelings. From one side, also we started to understand that Putin really can go for whatever, And that is what, definitely makes life, not easy. I mean, frontier countries really, we're facing some kind of this, psychological challenges, and we can see that investors, also are becoming more nervous. So that is why it's good that, again, Commission President says that we need to take care in those regions not only about real defense, but also about how to support those countries, frontier countries, with economical and social additional means. But from another side, I think that we can feel ourselves safer when we see that European Union member states, NATO member states, started to understand very much better what we were speaking, a few years ago, that Russia is really a threat. And that the only way how we can deter that threat really is, first of all, to support Ukraine and much more, and then to develop our own defense capabilities.